Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in EDH. Today we're looking at Hallar the Firefletcher. So this commander is going to be a few hoops to jump through. It's a 3-mana Gruul commander of 3/3 with trample, and it says whenever you cast a spell, if the spell was kicked, put a +1 counter on Hallar, then Hallar deals damage equal to the number of +1 counters on it to each opponent. So obviously we need a bunch of things with kicker. And specifically, the damage that it deals is based on the counters on it, not its power. So just regular pump is not going to work. We do need specifically +1 counters. So with that being said, let's go over the non-kicker stuff first. So we do have ways of putting counters on this. So Bristly Bill and Forgotten Ancient probably being some of the best ones, as well as Hardened Scales as just a cheap way of increasing the number of counters that this gets. And then we've got Sulfim as a way to increase the amount of damage that Hallar deals to opponents. Also, since our plan revolves around making Hallar bigger, we do have access to cards like Garruk and Return of the Wild Speaker to draw cards based on the power of a creature. Then we've got our combo cards. So the main combos here are Phyrexian Devourer, which allows us to exile the top card of our deck to put a +1 counter on the Devourer. And then we've got Slickberry Wogbonder, which is when it enters, you put a hexproof counter on a creature and then move any number of counters from among creatures you control onto that creature. So with these two and Hallar in play, we basically exile as many cards as we want. Then Slippery Bogbonder moves all the +1 counters from Devourer onto Hallar. And then the next time we cast a kicker spell, Hallar triggers and we kill everybody. We also have Devoted Druid and Luxior here for infinite green, and the Ozolith as a way to maintain counters on things in case Hallar gets killed. We have our pretty straightforward Gruul mana base with nothing much to see. We've got our protection. Obviously, this deck is very important that Hallar not get countered or killed, especially because we're going to have to devote so many resources into putting a bunch of +1 counters on Hallar. Some particular cards to note are Snakeskin Veil, which is a protection spell that puts a counter on Hallar, and Rhythm of the Wild, which is also an untapped counter spell that will put a counter on Hallar. Then we've got pump effects that also mostly involve counters. So we've got Evolutionary Escalation. This is, I think, a hidden gem among EDH cards. A 2-mana enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, put 3 counters on target creature you control and 3 counters on an opponent's creature. Fangs of Colonia puts a counter on a creature and then doubles the counters on that creature. Then we've got a whole bunch of ramp, bunch of removal spells, and some tutors. And we also have here Thundering Mightmare, which basically turns it whenever it's soul bonded into Mana Gorger Hydra. So this is another way of +1 countering our dude. So with that said, let's talk the kicker spells. So some of these are kicker cards that we would have played anyway, or that were just good enough regardless. So something like Everflowing Chalice is a perfectly fine ramp spell that also just happens to have multi-kicker on it. But most of the cards are going to fall into the category of we're playing them because they have kicker. So in a lot of cases, it's just going to be whatever was the cheapest card with kicker. So there's very few that cost 2 or less, and then there's a whole bunch of them that cost 3 or less. We've got things like Emblazoned Golem. This is just here to be something that we can kick for a total of 3 mana. Everflowing Chalice. Flametongue Yearling as a removal spell. Goblin Bushwhacker can pump the team, but it's mainly just here to be 2 mana total to kick. Grow from the Ashes as a ramp spell that later in the game can be a kicker card. Inscription of Abundance as another kicker card that also happens to put +1 counters on a creature, so that's pretty important there. Draga Warcaller, mass pump spell, beat down our opponents, but it also has kicker, and it's 3 mana total as long as we only kick it once. Overload, which is destroy target artifact if its mana value is 2 or less, but if we kick it, we can destroy the artifact if its value is 5 or less. So just a somewhat mediocre but still okay removal spell that later in the game has kicker. Primal Growth, same kind of deal as Grow from the Ashes, another ramp spell that we can kick. Reclaim the Wastes as another way of just finding a land, but then later we can kick it. Savage Offensive, a beatdown type spell, but it's again mainly just here to be 3 mana for kicker. Scorching Lava deals 2 to a creature or player, but if we kick it, the creature can't be regenerated and it goes to exile instead of dying, so just kind of a mediocre removal spell, but we can kick it. Skitter of Lizards, Yavimaya Iconoclast, and Sprouting Goblin are basically all just kind of cheap kicker creatures, nothing much to see here. Stuff like Skyclave Relic, Vastwood Surge. It's not likely that we're going to pay 6 for the Skyclave Relic or, 8 for the Vastwood Surge, but at least these are, decent enough ramp cards that later in the game we can kick them. Vines of Vastwood is a protection spell for Hallar that also can just be kicked. Sowing Micah Spawn, another decent card that has kicker attached to it. And then finally, probably the most interesting one, Wicker Picker from Unfinity. Creature spells you cast have Sticker Kicker 1. You may pay an additional 1 as you cast a creature spell, and if you do, you get a ticket, and then you may put a sticker on the creature. So importantly, you put a sticker on the creature spell that you kicked, not on any creature. So you can't sticker, Hallar, for example, but you sticker the creature that you get. So what exactly can you do with this? Well, first of all, just on the basis of this card alone, even if the stickers did absolutely nothing, it just means every single creature in your deck now has kicker. So moving on to the sticker sheet, this is probably going to be a reminder for anybody because I assume most players are not familiar with how stickers work. Essentially, your sticker sheet is you have 10 total. They must all be unique. And at the beginning of the game, you're going to choose 3 of these sticker sheets from among the 10 at random, and those are the sticker sheets you have access to. So your stickers are, you have your 3 name stickers and your 3 art stickers. Now, these effectively don't do anything. These are just stickers that you can put on stuff, and these are just for the sticker. So you're basically never going to run out of these because every single sticker sheet has 3 names, 3 arts, 2 abilities, and 2 PTs. So you've got 10 per, so 30 total per game. You're not going to run out. Then secondly, you've got the PT stickers. You can slap these on the creature and it changes their power and toughness. But then more importantly, we have the ability stickers. So these are the ones here that have these numbers on them that you've got to pay for the tickets. So remember, we get 1 ticket per sticker kicker. So we don't get anything until we get at least 2 of these sticker kickers. And I chose these stickers based on them having some sort of ability that was relevant at the 2 ticket ability. So the most relevant one is Notorious Sliver War, because the 2 ticket ability here is 5 creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So for example, if you've got like Devoted Druid Luxior to generate infinite mana and you sticker kicker a creature, you can now pay this 5 infinitely and all of your creatures get infinite power and toughness. Now, aside from that, that's obviously the best one, but this is random. We can't choose which sticker sheet we have at the beginning of the game. So the other ones are, for example, sacrifice this permanent to draw 2 cards. That's decent enough. Exile this permanent. You may cast a non-land card from your graveyard this turn. I assume in general that we're probably not getting higher than the 2 ability, so I'm mostly not caring about these like 3 and 4s. Whenever this creature attacks, untap a permanent. At least that can, untap a land or something. Similar to the 5 ability, this is 2. This creature gets +2/0 until end of turn, so infinite mana, and unfortunately only applies to the single creature that this is stickered onto, but at least it's something. Creature becomes a looter, tap, draw, discard. Whenever this creature attacks, create a treasure. Tap for 2 mana, spend this only to cast creature spells. And finally, tap, add 1 mana of any color. And there was a lot of other sticker sheets, but these are the ones I felt were the best ones according to whatever ability they had at the 2 ticket slot. Then obviously there were a bunch of other cards that we could have played as well. So additional kicker cards, for example. So I rejected a lot of these cards based on them being too expensive or just not doing anything. So in the case of Colossal Growth, for example, I already had enough cards that were 3 mana with the kicker. And remember that these pumps don't actually affect Hallar because the burn is based on the +1 counters. Comet Storm is also just too expensive. Strength of the Jujuru initially seems like the kind of card that would be perfect in this deck because it's a kicker card that also puts +1 counters on stuff. So we can put +1 counters on Hallar, but it's just really expensive and ultimately just usually not worth it. Although this is the one that I would consider the most if I were to try to swap this into the deck and test it again. But at least in my initial goldfishing of the deck, this card seemed pretty mediocre. Then a bunch of lands had to get cut, so some of our kicker cards involve going and fetching basics, so I needed more basics than normal, so I had to cut some duels from somewhere, so all of these lands wound up getting cut from the deck. All the, pump-related kicker cards wound up getting cut, and just like a whole bunch of other cards. We had to just make space for stuff. There was a lot of kicker creatures, which were just also not as efficient as other kicker cards we could play. Basically, every single one of these kicker cards just suck, and they cost way more than other kicker cards we could play, so these all wound up getting cut as well. But that is going to do it, so that does it for Hallar the Firefletcher in EDH.